Ina alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We're continuing with the topic. We're continuing with, wait a minute. Hold on, guys. I messed up my recording. Save it? No. Let me try it again. Hold on. This is the audio part. Okay. Ina alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We're continuing with the topic of how to find happiness in this life as we continue to fulfill our purpose of existence. Remember, we were created to worship Allah. We were put here to be tested to see if we truly do believe in Him. Can we fulfill that purpose and still find happiness in our lives here in this world? We talked about what are the sources that many people deem to be the means of success, the means of happiness. For example, money. A lot of people think that if they were rich, they'd be happy. We talked about that. We discovered how just because a person is rich does not guarantee them happiness. Many rich people out there are very unhappy. We also talked about power and prestige. A lot of people think that if they had power and high rank, high positions, that would guarantee them happiness in this world. We discovered that's not true either. Okay? And then we talked about educational achievement. If I was a PhD, if I was a doctor, an engineer, does this guarantee me happiness? We found out that doesn't guarantee it either. And then yesterday, fame. What about fame? If I was rich and famous, does that guarantee me happiness in this world? And we found out there's a lot of rich and famous people out there who are not happy. Many of them take their own lives. So, how do we find happiness in this world as we go about trying to fulfill our purpose? Well, in order to find happiness, you have to first of all know what are the things that can stand in the way of that happiness. There are certain barriers that we encounter in our personal lives that stand in the way of you finding happiness. Today we're going to speak about those barriers. We're going to learn what those barriers are. For example, one of the biggest barriers to not only happiness in this world, but it's also going to stand in the way of your happiness in the hereafter is the rejection of Allah. If you look at it, why is it that a lot of non-Muslims, they have the money, the fame, the power, the affluence, everything, but they're still not happy? It's because, and then you find these people walking around saying, why am I here? They don't even know what their purpose in life is. We have to understand, people who lack the correct belief system, people who lack the correct belief, they stray away. And they will end up suffering in this world, not knowing what their purpose is. Why did God even create me? What am I put here to do? A believer knows what their existence is for. And Allah speaks about this in the Quran. For example, He says in the interpretation, the meaning, those whom Allah willeth to guide, He opens their hearts to Islam. And those whom He chooses to leave straying, He makes their hearts closed and constricted, as if they had to climb up to the sky. Thus doth Allah lay abomination on those who refuse to follow His code of life, which is Islam, which means total submission to Him. So again, a lot of people who you meet who have the money, they have the power, they have the ranking, the fame, and all that, they still can't find happiness. Why? Well, it's because, first of all, they have to have the belief in something greater than themselves. They don't believe in Allah. To not believe in something greater than yourself, to not understand what your purpose of creation is, that's going to make you very, very unhappy. Also, another barrier that stands between a person's happiness is sin and crime. Sin and crime. I want you guys to understand a criminal is always more unhappy than his victim. One of the worst things you can do is take another person's life. To take another human being's life, even if you have to. Say, for example, you're defending yourself. Do you know how many people had to take someone's life out of defense for their own life, and they tell you they have nightmares about it. They have to go through counseling. It's a hard thing. The guilt involved. And not just with that, but with any type of sin, any type of crime. You know that it's haram to do drugs, but you're doing them. The guilt you have to live with. That brings about unhappiness. You know it's haram to not wear your hijab. You still have guilt about that. So to disobey a law or to commit crime, this will always stand in the way of you being happy, guys. That's why I tell you, sisters, fear Allah. Put those hijabs on. That way you don't have to suffer with that guilt. And maybe then you can move forward and find some contentment in this world between you and Allah. Okay? Stop committing sin. Stop doing bad things that you know you shouldn't do. And maybe you'll be able to live with yourself a little better. Also, another barrier or another thing that stands between a person being happy is jealousy. Oh my God. We talk about jealousy and envy a lot here. These are diseases of the heart. A person that suffers with jealousy and envy towards others, this is a person that's never going to be content with his condition, never going to be content with what he has. He's never going to be content with his life. People who suffer with jealousy and envy, they're too busy plotting and planning how to destroy those whom they envy, those whom they're jealous of, that they don't have time to even try to seek the good for themselves. So again, if you're a person who's suffering with jealousy and envy, this is going to always stand between you finding happiness in this world. You're going to have to learn to look to see the good that Allah has given you instead of focusing on what other people have. Until you can do that, you're never going to be happy. Also, another barrier that stands between a person's happiness is hatred. Hatred. Hatred is another disease of the heart. Just like jealousy, just like envy, just like anger, you are suffering with so much hate, so much contempt towards another that it can stand between you and your happiness. This is why Allah tells us in the Quran, in the interpretation, the meaning, and do not leave in your hearts any hatred against those who believe. And a lot of Muslims, we allow our jealousy of a person to fester in our heart until it turns into hatred. Every time you see this sister, you're so consumed with hatred against her that you're now plotting and planning another way to take her down. Again, free your hearts of jealousy. Free your hearts of hatred. Until you can do that, you will never be happy, because hatred is a virus that kills the lofty sentiments and kind feelings of a person. You'll become an angry, bitter, unhappy, miserable person because of the hatred that you have against others that festered and formed from your jealousy. Astaghfirullah. You don't want to be a person like that. I work with people like that. It's horrible. Okay? Another barrier that stands between happiness for a person is, of course, what we just said, anger. Because it all starts off with jealousy. Jealousy festers and turns into hatred. Hatred then festers and turns into anger. These are all evil diseases of the heart that come from Shaitan. And again, your personal jinn is going to push you to reach this state. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ has told us in so many numerous hadiths to not be overpowered by anger. Do you know how many sins, how many crimes are committed because people couldn't control their anger? We just completed Ramadan. Hopefully all of you have your anger in check, because it's one of the beautiful things about fasting during Ramadan. You learn to purify your heart of these bad diseases that can destroy you. You learn to control your temper because you want the blessings of Allah for not losing your temper. You want the blessings from Allah for being able to turn away from ignorance, turn away from others. So again, if you can free your heart of anger, then you'll have a better chance of finding happiness. I noticed I used to be a person when I was younger that used to get angry easily. Now that I'm older, now I don't even want to deal with stuff that makes me angry. If I get an email and it makes me angry, I don't even want to read it. I just delete it. I get a bill or a mail a mail from somebody, and I think it's going to make me angry. I just throw it away. I don't care. You know, because anger, it takes too much out of you. And it's hard to get back to where you need to be once you reach that level of anger. Also, guys, another barrier that stands between a person finding happiness in this world is injustice. Being unjust to other people, oppressing and hurting other people. If you look at people who are known racists, you look at people who are known bigots, those people live miserable lives. Okay? To go around being cruel to other people, unjust to other people, oppressing other people, there's no way you can be a happy person. Because it takes a bitter person to do that. Okay? Also, our Prophet ﷺ said, Allah may give a wrongdoing tyrant respite, and afterwards, when he punishes him, he will never let him escape. So again, guys, you don't want to be a person that goes around hurting others. You may think that you're getting away with it, but eventually it's going to catch up with you. Once Allah gets his hand on you and decides to punish you, you won't be able to escape, because Allah hates oppression. Allah hates injustice. The Prophet ﷺ said injustice will be a darkness on the day of judgment. Those people who went around hurting and oppressing other people, they will be dragged by their faces and thrown in the hellfire. They will meet the most severe punishment of all. We're not even allowed to be unjust to an animal as Muslims. We can't go around oppressing animals, more or less human beings. So again, if you're a person that's being unjust to other people, hurting other people, cruel to other people, there's no way you'll find happiness in this world. And you will be dealt with by Allah eventually. Also, another barrier that stands between a person finding happiness is fear. Fear of worldly power. We need to understand, guys, as Muslims, the only person you should fear is Allah. That's why I got so upset earlier this week when a new convert posted up on a Facebook group page I was a part of how she was afraid to wear her hijab around her family because they hate Muslims. So she asked, is it okay if I don't put my hijab on until I leave the area, the house, and go somewhere else? And these ignorant Muslims advised her, yeah, it's okay. Allah knows what's in your heart. No, no, no. You helped her fail her first test. Just because we say we believe in Allah is not enough. We're going to have to prove to Allah that we believe in Him by putting Him above our family, above our neighbors, above our friends. And the way to do that is by obeying Him, fulfilling the obligations He's imposed upon you. I don't fear my family more than I do Allah. Allah commanded me as a Muslim woman to wear my hijab, so I'm going to wear it. I don't care what my mother thinks, what my brother thinks, or what the man next door thinks about me. To fear something other than Allah is the cause of insecurity. It's the cause of unhappiness. Because you're living a double life. You're not being true to yourself. You're not being true to others. You're not being true to Allah. So we can't go around fearing anything more than Allah, guys. The only thing that the Prophet said we should fear is death. Besides Allah is death. Because once you die, that's it. There ain't no coming back and you have no chance to make it right. Remember, Allah tells us in the Quran, in the interpretation, the meaning, it is only Shaitan who suggests to you to fear his allies. So don't be afraid of them. Instead, fear me if you are true believers. Your family who hates Islam, your family who hates Muslims, they are the allies of Shaitan. Don't fear them. Fear Allah. Allah will be your protector. And eventually your family will accept you because there's an unconditional love that our mother and father have for us anyway. They may be angry because you Muslim right now. They'll get over it when they see that you're sincere because Allah has placed that unconditional love in their hearts. And Allah is the one who turneth the heart of man and change it. So again, this is another cause as to why so many people are not happy. You know, they fear something other than Allah or more than Allah. And that brings us to another barrier that will stand between you and happiness, and that is pessimism. What is pessimism? A pessimistic person, this is a person that, woe is me. They always see the bad in everything. This is a person that has no hope. This is a person that has no hope. I mean, life is doomed. We're doomed no matter what we do. There's never going to be anything good to happen to us. People who are pessimistic, these are people who suffer with depression. These are people who suffer with anxiety. These are people that end up committing suicide and the likes. A pessimistic person will hold back from enjoying his life. He will hold back from achieving his objectives because he thinks, what's the point? There's nothing good is going to come out of it. And this is why Islam forbids pessimism. Islam encourages us to be optimistic, to always think the best, always hope for the best. So if you're a person who is pessimistic, you always think the worst about things, you better ask Allah to free your heart of that. And learn to become more optimistic. You have to have hope. That's why Allah says there are three ingredients you have to have. If you don't have all three of them, then you're not a believer. You have to, first of all, have love for Allah. You have to, secondly, have fear of His punishment. And the third thing is you have to have hope of His forgiveness. Without hope, you're not a believer. So again, if you're suffering with pessimism, this is why you cannot find happiness in this world. Also, another barrier that stands in the way of people finding happiness is suspicion. You're always suspicious. You're paranoid. You're always thinking that others are out to get you. You're always thinking that someone else is waiting to take you down. You're always thinking the worst about things. Listen to what Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning. O you who believe, avoid suspicion as much as possible. Because some forms of suspicion are sin. Subhanallah. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said, avoid suspicion, because suspicion is the biggest lie. Because you're suspicious and paranoid, you think that sister is out to hurt you when she's not. She was here to help you. It was a lie that Shaitan put in your heart and your mind. How can a suspicious person be happy? And how can a society pervaded by suspicion and mistrust prosper or lead a collective life of happiness? Again, if you're always suspicious of others, suspicious of life in general, this is why you can't find any happiness. Also, another barrier that will stand between a person's happiness is arrogance. We talk about arrogance all the time. Arrogance is a sign of disbelief. Anyone who dies upon arrogance is a person that will be doomed to the hellfire forever. Arrogant people, they lead lives of misery because they think that they're superior over others. They put themselves on the same level of Allah, and as a result, they go around mistreating other people. They're rude, they're cruel to others. They're oppressive. Arrogance leads to oppression. Okay? So again, if you're a person that thinks you're better than everyone else, you're superior over everyone else, there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing you're doing wrong in your life, this is why you're not happy, because you think that there is no room for improvement. Remember, human beings are not perfect. As we talked about during Ramadan, there's always room for improvement. We should be growing every day in our relationships with Allah, our relationships with ourselves and each other. But a person that's arrogant fails to see that. He fails to see the need for growth, and so thus he thinks he has it all, and he's alone, and he's miserable. Also, another barrier that will stand between a person being happy is to be more devoted or to love someone more than you do Allah. You guys know the story of Romeo and Juliet, the story of Case and Layla. Case, who was known in the story as Layla's mad lover, he suffered tremendously from his love for her until he lost his senses, and he later died in a wretched, piteous state because he couldn't live without having Layla in his life. Astaghfirullah. Like Romeo and Juliet. Remember, guys, whenever your heart is devoted to something other than Allah, there's no way you can attain true happiness, because men, we are humans. Humans will let you down because we're not perfect. Humans will let you down. Allah is the one who will never let you down. There's nothing wrong with loving someone. But remember, as we talked about on the quiz today, everything should be within balance. Everything should be within moderation in Islam. I'm not going to love you to the point where I can't live without you. I'm not going to love you to the point where as you jump, I jump. That Titanic movie, I hate it. You jump, I jump. No, you jump, you're a fool. I'll throw you a life jacket if I see one. But I am not jumping in there after you, fool. I love me more than I do you. And I love Allah more than I do everything. So again, make sure that your love and devotion is to Allah first and foremost. And then make sure your devotion is to the Prophet Muhammad. And then make sure your love and devotion is to yourself. Never love anyone but Allah and the Prophet more than you. That's why a lot of people cannot find happiness. A lot of Muslim women. Many of you here on our website right now listening to me, participating in this class. You're miserable. You're unhappy because you don't have a husband. You think that your happiness entails having a man in your life. So you'll settle and marry any man just to say you got a man, and he ends up abusing you, dogging you, taking your money, stripping you of your pride, your self-respect, leaving you with an ugly child of a reminder of the bad choice you made. Because you loved the idea of loving someone more than you did Allah. Astaghfirullah, patience and everything. You know, so again, to devote yourself to other than Allah, there's no way you'll find true happiness. And finally, this is one everybody's aware of. Another great barrier that stands in the way of a person's happiness is drugs and alcohol. A lot of people think that happiness is attained through partying, going out, getting drunk, getting high. They resort to drugs, thinking it's going to take away their problems in life. But look what happens. The drugs wear off and they wake up and the problem is still there. The alcohol wears off, they wake up and the problem is still there. We see many examples of this every day. So if you're a person addicted to drugs, addicted to alcohol, addicted to love, addicted to anything, as a Muslim, you should not be addicted to nothing. Okay? If you're using drugs and alcohol as your escape, that ain't happiness. That's short-lived fun, as we talked about on the quiz. It goes away, and afterwards you feel like a loser. Rid yourself of alcohol, rid yourself of drugs or dependency on anything other than Allah. As a Muslim, you should not depend on anyone or anything except Allah. Until you do that, you're never going to find happiness. So thus, guys, these are the barriers that stand in the way of a person attaining happiness. Once you recognize what those barriers are, and then you destroy them, you tear them down, only then can you find true happiness. Tomorrow we're going to speak about how that happiness is found. So we'll stop right here for today. If you guys have any questions or comments, inshallah, you can type them on the screen.